There comes a time in every woodworker's life where you just got to face facts and accept the reality that you can't keep every little offcut and leftover that you've lovingly saved for the last weeks, months, years. At some point, you've got to use it. Well, I've got some shows coming up, as I might have mentioned in a previous video or two. And what I'm looking to make are some larger handled serving boards, similar to the ones I made in a previous vid, link below. I also want to make some boards of my absolute favourite size, my go-to board, which is 460mm by 250mm. The big pile in the middle will accommodate both the large handled serving board, which is about 420mm, and this larger board, 460mm. This pile will do any, so I think what I'll do is go through this and cut it for the larger board, the 460. If I can get a piece out of it to make a smaller serving board, the one at the far end, which is just to use the timber up. I don't really need any more, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So I split the big pile into two. That's the pile that will do both the large serving board and the chopping board. And the first job he's going to do is to rip down to 15mm all the pieces for the large serving board, and then make a start on the 25mm rips for the large chopping board. And if I think the piles aren't quite right, one needs more than the other, then I'll stop him and make him go back and rip some more 15mm. Then once he's done that, he can do the pile that I've got that will do the small serving board, and then we can start the glue up. Get on with it. Realization's just dawned on me that I don't have enough clamps to clamp everything up in one hit. Can you believe it? Not enough clamps. So I've stopped the ripping process, and what I'm going to do is start clamping some of these up. I think what I'm inclined to do is to go with a predominant species for the board, and then maybe a couple little accent strips. Tiny bit of tape to stop the glue ruining the clamp. A little bit coarse after the gate's bolted, you know what I mean. And as you'll probably notice, definitely notice, not quite enough tape. I'm intentionally avoiding trying to do any symmetrical patterns or get anything dead center, because if I go for that, I've got to pay a lot more attention than I'm currently doing and really focus. And I'm embarrassed to say I'm a bit short on time. Life's events have construed against me, or I've been a lazy git of late. And the shows are creeping up at a rate of knots. One done, 20 odd more to go. Maybe I should make some bongos. Anyway, now we plane, square and thicken. So on to thickness in all of these, then none of them have to be the same thickness. It's not as if they're going to be sold as a set or a pair, but it's going to save me a lot of time winding the head up and down if I just run them all through together. So a little bit of time to get the initial height set, but then through they all go, and then that stack, then this stack, and then finally the small stack, and we're there. Crack on. So finally, with all the prep work done, I can at long last start cutting the boards. So my approach for this is going to be based on using the same system that I used for the smaller serving boards in a previous video. I'll put a link down below for you. On these larger boards, I'm going to be using the template that I cut with the Ortur Lasermaster 3. Again, I'll put a link to that vid down below. So I'm really interested to see how well I get on with the 9mm template as opposed to my usual 18mm template. It really shouldn't make an awful lot of difference because I only need the template to be thick enough or slightly thicker than the guide bush on the bottom of the router. And I know 9mm is thicker than the guide bush on the bottom of this DeWalt router, so it should be absolutely fine. But I'm kind of tickled to bits with the fact that I managed to cut the template on the laser and not having to make it manually or use the CNC. And finally, you may well be asking yourself, why don't you use the CNC, Graham? Fair question. Well, I would kind of always had it in my mind that I'm going to use the template that I cut out on the laser, plus the fact in previous time trials, there wasn't really enough of a saving using the CNC over doing it manually. 7 minutes. A really nice larger serving board. Well, larger board compared to the smaller one. In actual fact, looking at them together, they might well go nicely as a pair. Who knows? See how I feel on the day. Anyway, on to cutting the chopping boards. For the edge grain chopping boards, I'm going to take a slightly different approach. I've allowed the width to be determined by the thickness of the timber, which became the width as it came off of the sliding table saw. So I'm going to trim them to the length I need on the chop saw. I'll cut one end square, then flip them over, use a stop to get them all at the 450 that I need. He says checking his sheet. Yep, 450mm long. Once they're all cut to size, I'm then going to use a router template guide to draw the size of radius that I want on each corner. Then I'll trim that off on the bandsaw with a little small blade in it. Once I've got the corners cut, I can then move on to the HS950, the belt sander, and I can round all the corners and also smooth the sides and the ends and get the boards ready for the sanding table. So I'm using the Rotec 150 on the power sanding mode, the aggressive mode, which means, with H-grit paper on, sorry, which means as soon as it comes in contact with the board wants to spin, especially with the smaller boards. So I've got some stops set on the bench that'll, as close as I can to holding it in place, but it'll stop that spinning. So I can keep two hands on the sander and get them all sanded much quicker. So everything's now sanded up to 150 grit using that new amazing Cubitron paper. Absolutely love it. Wish I'd bought it as soon as it came out, but yeah, I like to wait for other people to take that first step, if you know what I mean. Anyway, fantastic paper, cuts really quickly, lasts for ages. Give it a try. I'll try and find a link and pop it down below. So this is my last chance to get the edges of the serving boards really nice and smooth, get rid of any defects I might have left in from the router. So I've got a bit of 150 grit on the spindle, and I'm just going to go around all the edges and, as I said, check to make sure there's no defects left. On to the roundovers then. Two different size bits, larger bit for the chopping boards, smaller bit for the serving boards, and I'm going to be using the Bosch GKF 600. Lovely little router, perfect size in my hand anyway, nice rubber grip on it. Just means I can control it that much better when I'm doing the handle bit where there's a fear of tipping, because there's not a lot there for the router to purchase on. So my preferred, even though it's corded. So I've traded up from the Bosch to the D.I.Y, slightly larger motor, 900 watt over 600 watt, slightly bigger body, but I'm happy with that, and slightly bigger base as I've got far more board for the router base to purchase on. I think as this is that slightly larger bit, as I mentioned before, that the higher watt motor is better suited to drive this over 16 boards. So I'm on the home run now. A little light sand around all the edges that I've just routed, and then a good damping all over. The amount of time it takes for the boards to dry after the damping means I've got enough time to sand 5, both before the damping, sanding after the round over the router, and also finish sanding before it goes on to the laser for the branding. But I think this is the bit where it's possibly going to fall apart. How long is it going to take all of these boards to dry? Because this is about the max number of boards that I can get out at any one time, and they're all going to have to dry before I can get the next batch out. And this represents a little over half of this type of board. I'm running out of room quicker than you can say mine's a large bourbon and a packet of peanuts, please. Well, that I think is a good jobbed. My biggest batch yet, 50 boards in one hit. Batching is the way to go without a shadow of a doubt, but you've got to be careful you don't lose sight of the quality aspect of it. It's very easy to get tied up in getting the numbers and the throughput through. So in future, I'm not going to attempt batches of this size. I'm going to stick with the making 5 or 10, maybe a dozen tops, so that I can keep focused on making sure I keep the quality of the product where I want it to be. The biggest problem I had in attempting something on this scale was where to put everything during each process. Where can I drop it to? If I'm planing, it's got to go from one place onto the planer and then back to another, and same with the sanding and the oiling, applying the finish, as I mentioned, is just a nightmare. I don't have the space to put everything, but I'm kind of glad I've done it. I'm now prepared for the shows. Hopefully I can sell them and make room to make more. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much indeed for watching, and see you next time at the GT Woodshop. Ta-ra.